Okay, let's get to wide receivers. The guys at the top of our rankings, we have DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, and Julio Jones. I think no big surprise there, although I would say I'm a little hesitant on Adams just because of the ankle injury and then the hamstring issue that he seemed to have. I mean, I think he's going to be fine. It seems like that's the way this is leaning, but I'm still just a little bit hesitant and want to see some practice reports before really taking a stand on him. But Will, where are you with your rankings?
Yeah, I think Hopkins is unquestionably the number one guy right now. They're still feeding him. Great matchup. I think that Adams is there if he practices, but we need to see it happen. And it's not a great – I know the Saints were terrible on Monday night, but Marshawn Lattimore, not necessarily a great matchup. I actually think you can make a case that 2 and 3 could be Amari Cooper and DK Metcalf.
Okay. I like this. I like where you're going here because I actually did have Amari number 1 in my first run through. And then I bumped him down. I had him at a 28% market share and that just felt too high. And so I bumped him down a little bit. And now I have him, I think at, only number 5, but I totally agree with you in that he's still being targeted very heavily within that Cowboys offense. I think we're going to see a high-scoring game. There's nothing that the Seahawks defense has done to make me think that they are capable of stopping that Dallas aerial attack. And he's, being targeted, pretty not consistently like far down the field, but like he's getting enough air yardage to where like if he gets targets, he could get some serious yardage with it. So I'm with you 100% on Amari Cooper. I'm very interested in him for this week. Sean, who do you have in the top 3?
My top 3 is, I have DeAndre Hopkins number 1, and then Devontae Adams number 2, but he is banged up, so that could change. Number 3 is still Julio Jones, but I will say it's basically tied with Julio and Calvin Ridley at number 3.
Chris, what about you?
Yeah, DeAndre is still, Devontae Adams is still in my top spot, but like Sean said, that could change depending on his status. DeAndre Hopkins, number 2, he would ascend to number 1. And then I believe it's Tyreek Hill, number 3 for me still. No, wait. Yeah. Tyreek Hill, number 3 for me. And Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf and Calvin Ridley are also right there in my, pushing for that top spot. So it really depends on the injury status of Julio and Devontae, because them with DeAndre would be my top 3, assuming health. But like Cooper, Lockett, Ridley, Metcalf, all those guys are right there.
Yeah, Raybon, I'm there with you. I have Tyler Lockett, number 3. I have Hopkins and Julio at the top. Adams is further down the board just because I projected him a little more conservatively because of the injury. But Lockett, Ridley, Amari, and those are even DJ Moore. But like those guys are all essentially tied for the 3rd spot. But I have the slight edge with Tyler Lockett. Man, I mean, I think that Dallas-Seattle game is just going to be a total shootout. Will, who are some guys that you were relatively high on?
Quickly, I would say Odell Beckham. I've led the Odell Beckham. I pounded the table that he would have a bounce back year. Week 1 was not kind, but week 2 is pretty good, and he should have really had 2 touchdowns. I think he's got a very nice matchup this week against a Washington football team that is not – DeAndre Hopkins scored on a wide-open touchdown. Like he wasn't even covered. They got a good front 7, but nothing on the back end. So I'm high on him this week. I think Michael Gallup, for DFS purposes, people are off. He's dirt cheap. CeeDee Lamb, I think, is $100 less than Michael Gallup, and Gallup hasn't seen a ton of targets. But this game could be wide open enough where Gallup gets a couple of those looks down the field, and he finally breaks out, and people wonder at like 5% ownership or something like that. And then T.Y. Hilton, I think it's probably a Jonathan Taylor game against the Jets. But the Colts could have scored a lot of points against the Vikings. I mean, they had 4 field goals inside of 4 field goals of 40 yards or less. And if T.Y. can get loose in that secondary against the Jets, I think we could see a big week.
Sean, who are you relatively high on?
So for the life of me, I can't figure out why DJ Moore's only 6,100. I mean, he's going to be an absolute target monster without CMC. He has 22 targets after 2 games, but only 12 receptions. So I think he'll see some regression just in terms of catching balls. But at 47.5% of team air yards, he's fourth in the league. So I just think he's due for massive positive regression. So he's my wide receiver 10, but like you guys mentioned, it's really bunched up in the top 10 right now. But I think he has an extremely high floor. I mean, he's basically Julio Jones, where you can bank on a ton of receptions and yards, but not really touchdowns. So if he gets a touchdown, that's really icing on the cake at this point. And then the other guy is CeeDee Lamb. I'm going to continue playing him if he's under 5,500. This week he's 5,400 at Seattle. Like you said, this should be an absolute shootout. So I have him as a wide receiver 2 at wide receiver 24. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to just keep taking him until he crosses at least 5,500.
Rayvon, what do you got here?
I love 3 guys I mentioned earlier: Cooper, Metcalf, Lockett, right in that 64 to 6,500 range. Those guys are priced below, like Juju and Godwin and Evans and Thielen, and Stefan Diggs, who has a really tough matchup against the Rams. And I don't think that should be the case at all. I think those guys are all in the conversation for top 8. And then DJ Moore, just like Sean said, way too cheap at 6,100 as well.
Okay. As a longtime fan of Juju Smith-Schuster, it pains me to say this, but Deontay Johnson, I'm pretty high on him this week. He, in theory, is going to see the shadow coverage of Bradley Roby, which I think is funny that the Texans are even using Roby in shadow coverage, because it's not like he's a shutdown corner. He's a guy. So if anything, that might honestly be a good situation, but I think at a minimum, it's just like, it's nothing. It's not like a deterrent. And Roethlisberger has shown the willingness for the past 2 games to pepper Deontay Johnson with targets. And even though Johnson hasn't been Antonio Brown-esque in his ability to turn those targets into a ton of yards, he's still getting Antonio Brown level usage. And I think at some point, if he actually is getting that usage, it might indicate that he's probably good enough to do something with that target volume. And we know that he was a good producer in college. He was very underappreciated in his rookie season. Actually, the number 1 rookie receiver in terms of receptions, even though he wasn't playing with Roethlisberger. So I think there's some potential here, and that's not to take anything away from Juju at all. I'm probably high on both of these guys, but Deontay Johnson is much further up the board than I thought he would be, and maybe that target volume doesn't stick. Right, that would be the case against him, is that like he's just kind of lucked his way into 23 targets in 2 games, and that regresses. But I think that this might be pretty sticky, and if it is, he could just totally explode. Will, who are you relatively low on?
Well, I'll pair up my quarterback with a wide receiver here, go with Stefan Diggs. I just think Jalen Ramsey's probably going to shadow him the entire time. Maybe I could be wrong, but that seems like what they'll do. Either way, the Rams have done a great job locking down wide receivers and locking down what should be better passing games in the Cowboys and the Eagles. I don't think we see a massive game from Diggs. I think people will be chasing his breakout against the Dolphins. But if you watch the game, there's a shot where like Diggs is running with the ball towards or making a catch, and like Byron Jones is laying on the ground holding his crotch because he hurt his groin. Like, he's just laying there like French toast, and Diggs is running with the ball. And I mean, you feel bad because the guy's ripped his privates up, but like I don't know. I don't think he's going to get that sort of matchup in this week. Sorry to do that while you're drinking, Friedman.
Oh, it was good. It was good. Sean, who are you relatively low on?
I'm also low on Diggs, especially at 7K this week. The arrow is certainly pointing way up for he and Josh Allen. Like I said last week, I thought they were a sneaky stack. But this week, yeah, I have him at wide receiver 15. He has a tougher test this week against Jalen Ramsey, so I think he could be overowned. Easy fade for me, but we'll absolutely be stacking him again in the near future. And I'm also low on Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Brady will finally get both receivers back healthy this week, but unfortunately, this is a game where I could see them being run heavy at Denver against Jeff Driscoll. This is one of those games where it would be nice to have Jameis Winston throw a couple interceptions, maybe a pick six to keep them in the game. But, I just don't see that happening. I think they'll play it pretty safe. So I have both guys as, low-end wide receiver twos. I think that just having everybody healthy sort of caps everyone's ceiling. This isn't really a high-volume offense quite yet. So I'm low on both guys this week.
Raybon, what about you?
Yeah, for me, it's absolutely Stefan Diggs. He stood out, and I would even say John Brown as well. If you look at the Rams against wide receivers, 41 targets for just 300 yards. That's just 7.3 per target. The league average is about 8.1, and no touchdowns through 2 games on 41 targets. Remember, they faced Amari, they faced CeeDee Lamb, Gallup, Deshaun Jackson. Like a decent group of receivers. They've just been shutting them down. And then another guy a little further down for me is AJ Green. He's been getting a ton of like looks from Joe Burrow, and they haven't been really translating all that much. And I just think that against this Philly defense, they held McLaurin in check to 61 yards and 7 targets, no touchdowns. They haven't allowed a touchdown to wide receivers. And Robert Woods, who had a big week 1, he was kind of de-emphasizing the game plan a little bit, wasn't able to really break free. Just 2 catches on 5 targets for 14 yards, while Cooper Kupp, jumped up with 5 of 6 for 81. So, and Van Jefferson had 4 for 45. I think that Green is a little more similar to Woods, and that he's probably going to run a few more routes on the perimeter. And I think they're going to have to kind of dial back his usage for at least this game and let Burrow spread it around a little bit more. So, and he just doesn't look back yet, like fully back yet. So Green's another guy. Like the targets are there, but not really loving it.
All right, one guy I'm relatively low on, and I'd like to second the Tampa Bay Buccaneers there with Sean, low on them. But one guy I'm low on, Keenan Allen, who had a pretty good game last week. But I think this week we might see the Chargers go back to Tyrod Taylor. And I think that will not be a good thing at all for Keenan Allen. And so I have him right now projected outside of, I believe, my top 36. So thinking of him as more of a wide receiver for this week. Sean, give us the prop.
So it gives me great pleasure to be able to ask this question already in week 3. I think it's truly a 50-50 prop. So who will score more DK points this week? Julio Jones or Calvin Ridley?
That's spicy. I will say Julio Jones because I think the whole world thinks Calvin Ridley will.
That is spicy. And I do think that is pretty much 50-50.
Yeah, this is the best case scenario for Ridley. I mean, Julio's obviously, being slowed down by this hammy injury, but him playing with a hammy injury is probably the best case scenario for Ridley. I think if Julio was like downright ruled out, I might lower Ridley a little bit. But really Julio running around sort of gimpy is sort of best case scenario for Ridley right now.
That's a good point.
I will take the Ridley side of this just because I do think that Julio is probably hampered more than we think.
You're wish casting your 90-1 lead the league.
Yes, right now he's in the lead, so I'm not going to say anything. I don't.
I got him at 40. So
Yeah, I'm going to go Ridley because, number one, if Julio plays even through an injury, that'll be great for him as a decoy for Ridley. But number two, I usually, knock down guys a percentage when they are playing through an injury. So Julio will get that, which will kind of equalize it. But the right answer may be none of them because the Bears have been pretty tough. It might be Russell Gage. Amendola went for 81 on 7 targets in week 1. Marvin Jones got held to 55 yards and 8 targets. Cephas 43 yards and 10 targets. And then last week, Golden Tate led the Giants with 47 yards, caught 5 of 5. Slayton just 33 yards on 6 targets. CJ Board 32 on 3. Shepard just 29 on 4. He's playing more outside, and Ratley didn't even catch any of his 2. So they're playing really good perimeter defense and struggling over the middle. Maybe a Hurst and Russell Gage game.
Raymond, I love how you took the time to deconstruct the prop. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, I could have just floated I'll give you Gage at 6-1, Hurst at 6-1.
I'll take it. I'll take it. No, I just wanted to point that out.
I agree.
Don't forget about Gage. Don't forget about Gage.
Yeah.
He's playing well.